So there you go.
So now are we unmuted and people can open their cameras and whatnot? We do invite you to open your cameras, and we're going to introduce Nayswami Shivani now. As I said, she's joining us from Assisi. If you aren't familiar with Shivani, she is one of the founding members. She's been in Assisi. She's like founding members of Assisi too. She's one of their premier teachers there. She's the mentor to our dear friend Darshan, who we all know and love. And I think she's even writing a book right now on healing, which sounds very interesting. There's so much to say about Shivani, but we will just like to invite her now to open up and share with us today, and we're so happy to have you. Thank you, Shivani, for joining us.
So thank you very much for this invitation, and please let me know if you can hear me well. So that's a yes, that's wonderful. And I would love to see you. If that's at all possible. I'm coming from a long way, and rather than seeing little black boxes with names I can't relate to, if you would kindly turn your videos on with your actual face in it. So I'm just going to wait a moment, and while you're doing that, I'd like to welcome also those of you from Ananda Europa, and you can begin to see each other. We have Usha is with us, and there's Usha, there's Hansa with us, Yamuna, Michaela Pence is with us, Mark Monson Narada, Karina, and there, okay. Good, and there are some others. I'm going to wait just another minute because it helps me a lot to be able to see you and just to have the physical contact. It's morning there, so you're not going to be in your pajamas.
We also have some folks here from Colorado, Vina, and I see Stephanie is on. She's from Colorado. Kevin is from Colorado.
Wonderful.
And
Wonderful.
We've got Sonia in Houston and some of our folks from Austin, Texas as well. So welcome everyone.
Wonderful.
And Priya's in the village too.
Great. It's nice when we're together as a community and we're able to contact and share with each other. Well, the reading today was called Inner Kingdom, the Inner Kingdom. And for those of you who haven't read it in a while, the book by Swami Kriyananda called The Promise of Immortality. I suggest that you take that in hand today or sometime soon and read the chapter on the inner kingdom, because it's in that chapter that Swami goes very deeply into how the inner kingdom is constructed and the relationship between the teachings of Jesus and the teachings of yoga. You know, it's all about the inner garden and the tree and the Sushumna, and just full of very, very deep thoughts. I was reading it before the satsang, and for example, there was one sentence I had to read 3 times, not because it was complicated, but just there was so much in that one sentence that I wanted to get the most out of it. I would also like to recommend an article that Swami wrote that appears in, I believe it appears in the book Religion in the New Age. And it's called How to See, Think, and Feel Differently. Does that ring a bell to any of you? It exists also in Italian. per i nostri che ci sono dall'Italia e nel libro La religione nel nuova era. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about how to see things differently and how Swami saw things differently. There was a time when we accompanied Swami, my husband and I and others from Ananda village. This was in the early years. It was in the 1970s. I remember Nayswami Vijay was there, Nayswamis Durga and Vidura were there, and there were some others. It was a conference, a spiritual conference, and the subject of the conference, the main subject, was about spiritual community. Now, Ananda had just existed for a short time, but Swami Kriyananda was already known, and he became introduced essentially as the father of spiritual community. And it was a nice introduction. You know, they really laid it on. They mentioned his book about cooperative communities, how to start them and why. And so he came up to the microphone, and I'll always remember this. I mean, obviously I have for the last 40 years. The first thing he said was, some people say that I am, the father, the pioneers of spiritual communities, but actually I don't really care very much about community. And when he said that, there was this audible gasp in the whole audience. There was this, and we were holding our breath, like, oh my word, what is Swami going to say? I mean, he's been invited. The conference was kind of built around his presence as the keynote speaker. I don't really care about communities, he said. He said, what I do care about is people finding God. And that's the only purpose of having a community, whether it's a community like those which exist at the village or at Assisi, whether it's the colonies, whether it is your meditation group. That is the inner kingdom, that's the inner purpose, the container or the structure of having something that facilitates finding God. Because it's the hardest thing in the world to do. And we cannot do it alone. We need all of the help that we can get. And as Master so often said, environment is stronger than willpower. Now, we've all come to this incarnation with great desire to find God from the past. And we have a lot of experience. And I think that much of that experience is when we were seeking God as alone, meaning, there's God alone, which is, our goal. I have a little pin on here. I don't know if you can see it. No, you can't see it. It says God alone. But I meant that we have alone been seeking God. And it's been hard. And here we are incarnated again. And it takes the right environment. It takes the right kind of friendship. It takes the magnetism. It takes the outward structure for being able to serve. Service is a part of our spiritual path. It's a part of finding God, even at the highest levels. Master said that we cannot ourselves find God, find freedom, until we have brought at least 6 people along in their own realization. And so whatever community that you belong to at the moment, and those of you in Texas, you belong to this community, whether it's going to again be in a physical place and also online, like this, that the inner story about the community is that it is here for us to find God. And by giving our all and serving, we are able to make giant steps spiritually. I remember there was, I can't remember the exact situation, either someone or a few people left Ananda village. And again, this was in the early years. And they left saying, we don't have enough time to meditate because we're serving. We're doing so much service, and we want to dedicate much more of our lives to meditation. I remember Swami's comment. He said, they will find out that without the community, they're not going to be able to meditate as deeply, and they won't have the opportunity for service, and they will be disappointed. All right, moving on. One of Master's most important works was his commentary on the Bhagavad-Gita. There's many other works, I'm not going to comment on them, but in the Bhagavad-Gita, and I think all of you are familiar with the story, and all I'm going to say about it this evening is that it highlights the relationship between the outer and the inner kingdom, the outer reality and the inner reality. The essence of something or the content of it, and the container which holds it. So Bhagavad Gita, is an allegory. It takes place on a battlefield. There's Arjuna and his Pandava brothers and many other soldiers. And one of Master's most important contributions to Bhagavad Gita, which started actually with Lahiri Mahashaya and his comments, was highlighting, giving a quality from our inner kingdom to those outward soldiers. The real battle of life, of finding God, is an inner one. It happens in the inner kingdom. We've heard it said about Kriya that the pathway to God is actually very short. It's the length of our Sushumna. And this is actually where the battle of Bhagavad Gita takes place. The very first words of the Gita, first verse in the first chapter, Dharma Kshetra Kurukshetra, meaning that the battlefield of life, the Kurukshetra, is the battle of Dharma, which we fight inside of ourselves. So today we want to talk about how we can see and feel and live from the inner kingdom in a totally different way than people are normally engaged in life. Now, even for us, there are so many temptations of thinking and believing to some extent, of getting involved in the outward show of life. I mean, what a drama it is. We might think that the drama of life today is more dramatic than it ever has been. And I'm sure that people in all ages, have thought that. It's just that we know more about what's happening all around the world. Even those of us here in Europe are praying for the grieving families in Texas and for the people who are bravely fighting in the Ukraine or who have escaped and are setting up a whole different life. And when we let ourselves get engaged in that dialogue, believing it to be real, we're losing contact with our inner kingdom, because what we think about what's happening, what our opinion is, what our stance is, what our values are or understanding of something, whether it's about pandemics or masks or vaccines or guns or war, invasion, it doesn't matter. Of course, it has in its own context a reality, but we are yogis. In the reading today, the last line is Krishna saying to Arjuna, he's saying, Arjuna, be a yogi. And the path of yoga, meaning of Raja Yoga, of being in the inner kingdom, is superior to the other paths, because it shows us where is the inner kingdom. And it teaches us from the depths of our own experience how to live from the inner kingdom. I was always fascinated by how differently Swami Kriyananda perceived things. Now, again, going back to the early years, because I do go back to the very earliest of year, those of us who came then, we were, by and large, almost all of us, we were very young, probably just out of university. There were all kinds of things happening, including the war in Vietnam and the protests against that war. Many things were happening. And those of us who came, we came from some kind of involvement in that. I was in law school and I was protesting against the war, at the White House. And there were police with batons, who were hitting back the protesters. One of the earliest members at Ananda, who is still there, I'm not going to name names, was someone who had burnt his draft card and was kind of in hiding, so that you wouldn't have to go to jail. So we came from the normal kind of involvement in the so-called reality of the world. And it took time until, through Swami's teaching, to get in touch with another reality that is more real, that is the only reality, that is the only truth, which is God and our relationship to Him. And this is how Swami saw everything, while the rest of us saw things in, let's say, an outward and a practical way. I remember the first time Swami went to India after Ananda was started. You know, there's a whole backstory about that. But this story is that he finally goes, he gets his visa and he goes, and he's gone for some time. And I mean, we're young and the community is just a few years old. And he leaves somebody in charge and he wishes us well. And what's the law? I can't remember. It's somebody's name, somebody's law, Moody's law or something like that, that says, if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. And that's what happened when Swami was gone. I mean, everything went wrong. The person in charge that he left in charge was, he was married. He was having an affair with somebody else who was married. We decided to kick him out of the community. The finances were terrible. The guests weren't coming. I mean, everything was going wrong. So Swami comes back and, you know, he walks through the community and he listens to people and everything. And then he has a satsang. And one of the first things he says in the satsang is, I'm so happy to see how well things are going. You know, oh, you know, what do you mean? Haven't you heard? And of course he had heard, but what he was seeing was that through all of these very challenging experiences, we were growing, you know, we were learning, we were having to meet and also to fail and make mistakes, but doing it with courage and with good spirit, yeah, even though we weren't wise and we were not making good decisions. But he didn't see that. He saw the spirit. I remember once I was talking to Swami, mentioning somebody who was living here, and he wasn't quite sure who the person was. And I said to him, oh, Swami, he's the one that has these amazing turquoise blue eyes. It was his most striking feature. I mean, you couldn't see this person without seeing, you know, it was kind of like Elizabeth Taylor, those eyes. And Swami said, I don't remember the color of anybody's eyes. He looked at me and he said, what color are your eyes? He said, I don't see people's eyes. You know, I see their energy. I see their essence. And this is what he is teaching us, what Master is teaching us to do, and to not get distracted by the container, by the outward show. There's this little joke of a story that says one day a princess lost a very priceless pearl necklace when she was walking alongside the river, and she offered a big reward for it. So there was an office worker who passed by that part of the river on his way to work, and he saw it in the river, you know, kind of down in the mud, but he could see it. And so, but the river was muddy and dirty and it was polluted, but he would go in there because he wanted the reward. And so he'd go in and, you know, muck around in there, and he just couldn't find it. But day after day, he'd see it there. He just couldn't get it in his hand. And one day, as he was in the water, a wise man passed by, and he said to him, what are you looking for? And the man said, the pearl necklace. I see it, but I can't get it. And the man said, look up. And so the man looked up, and there was a tree, and the necklace was in the tree. The reflection was in the water. Okay. So, good little story, isn't it? What we see outside is a reflection. It's only a reflection. One of the reasons that I adore the paintings of Claude Monet and the water lilies is because how profoundly he captures reflection. How light is reflected in so many layers and so deep, and there's just no end to that. And if you ever have the chance, I hope you do, to go to Paris and see the originals. It's stunning. I remember just sitting in the room where his large panels are, just sitting there weeping and just not able to move, just like being almost in a Christmas meditation. Just the depth, the beauty of how light filters down. We want to see and begin to live from where the light originates. And we're yogis, we're Kriya yogis. We know this and we do this, but we get distracted. We get trapped by the reflection of reality that is outside of ourselves. We all know about Master. He writes about it, I think, in Whispers from Eternity, in the introduction to Whispers from Eternity, about going to the cinema, and seeing the pictures on the screen, and the tragedies and the comedies and so forth, and turning around and looking at the beam, and then saying to his disciples, look at the beam, the light ray. That's reality, not the reflection that we see on the screen. So everything that we do in our lives, just like the Battle of Kurukshetra, has an outward, let's say, meaning, an outward reality, but an inward significance. Swami lived in the inner kingdom, and he was able to see the outer reflection as something significant from inside. Just like when he came back, from India, I'm glad to see you are all doing so well. We couldn't see it because we were living on the periphery, on the surface, and not in that inner kingdom. Again, in the early years, I think it was 1974, when he sent out a group of us to do seminars on how to be prepared for difficult times. Okay. And that's what they were called. They were officially called the preparedness seminars. And there was Jyotish, Devi, Asha, Santosh, myself, and a couple others. I don't know if Prahlad was there yet, but anyway, we went out, and the nickname for the tours, we called it the Doom and Gloom tours, but it was about how to be prepared. I mean, we'd been on the path. I mean, Ananda started in 1969. This is 5 years down the line, and we're all, the Europeans won't understand this phrase, we're all wet behind the ears we're neonati, no, appenanati. And we're out there, teaching how to be prepared. I'm showing people how to make sprouts, and Asha's talking about community and so forth. Well, we did what we could, and I assumed that Master used us, in some way to reach people. But on reflection about that, it has become clear that the preparedness seminars were about preparing us, not preparing. There was some reality. So people learned how to make sprouts and food storage and things like that. But that wasn't really what was happening. Swami was preparing his team, sending us out there. And just as a sideline from that tour have come two couples, Jyotish and Devi, and Shivani and Arjuna. We're not married at that time, but because of that tour and the contact that we had and working together, we actually were married just 1 month apart in 1975 on the full moon. Jyotish and Devi on the full moon in March, and Arjuna and Shivani on the full moon in April. And the astrologer, Swami's astrologer, had said that it was the most auspicious time, I think, in a century, to get married. And it seems like he was right, because both couples have done very well, and we're getting close to celebrating our 50th anniversary of marriage. But anyway, back to the gloom and doom. They were preparing us. Then there was the fire, and a lot of people, even living at the community, not having enough contact with the inner kingdom, and seeing how the fire destroyed all of the homes and so much of the land and the trees and the beautiful nature, they left. They left the community. And Swami, while he was, of course, compassionate about what that fire, meant on the physical level, that was not his point of reference. His point of reference was, we did it once, we're going to do it again. These things happen. People were saying, is this a sign that we're not supposed to have this community? Is this our bad karma? And so forth. He wasn't concerned about any of that. He was concerned about the spirit of building back, but also he got another message from that. And that message was, go out and share the community. Because the community is not just that land, not just those homes. It was clear. They were all gone. The reason for community is to help people find God. And so there were the joy tours. There were 2 of them, and they were huge. I mean, I was on the first joy tour, and I organized the second joy tour. I mean, Swami took like 18 people with him, in a big motorhome and 3 big vans and musical equipment and loudspeakers. And it was an enormous thing to do at that time. I mean, even just the preparation and then doing it and traveling. And there were the Gandharvas. Anybody remember the Gandharvas? The singers, I think my trade, probably, and Narada. Mark, you remember the Gandharvas. So Swami just took Ananda on the road That was the message that he was responding to from his inner kingdom. And we traveled all through the States. We came down to Texas. Maitri, I don't think you were there at that time. No, you're shaking your head no. But we came through Dallas. We picked up on that tour. And see, here's what it was. Why was Swami doing that? He was just like Master. When Master did his campaigns, you know how he was always traveling. Master was, when he was in Boston, he was going to New York and Philadelphia and Chicago and Pittsburgh. And then when he moved to the West Coast, he was going to Seattle and Alaska and so forth. So this was the campaign. This was the going out and sharing. So in Dallas, we picked up Krishna Das and Savitri. In Colorado, you said there were some people here from Colorado. We picked up Deborah, Gitanjali, and David Praver. In Washington, D.C., we picked up Latika. So that next wave came, were magnetized, and they came through those tours. Now, at the end of the day, especially one that I had organized, it was not a money-making affair. I mean, we were traveling. We went down through California, over through Texas. I'm not sure that we stopped in Mexico. We might have stopped in Phoenix. And then we came around, we skipped Florida, and we came up north. There was Washington, D.C., there was New York, I think there was Philadelphia. Then we went up into Canada, and we got Montreal, and then came down to, I mean, it was a huge tour. We're talking, you know, thousands and thousands of miles on this tour. And it didn't make money. In fact, it lost money. Not a big amount of money. I mean, I was kind of sad because I said to Swami, I'm so sorry. You know, the tour didn't make money. We lost money. And he looked at me like I was out of my mind. He said, what are you talking about? Look at the benefits. And he said, you will see through the years the benefits of this. And we did. So things in our life, even for example, Maitri, how long do I have to talk? But I have 5 more minutes?
Sure, and then we'll open it up for some
for questions. Okay, yeah, 5 minutes is good. Even in our Kriya, you know, there's the outer universe, you know, of the Kriya. There's the breath, there's the sounds, there's the diaphragmatic muscle. In the energization exercises, there's tense and relax. But then there's the inner reality. In Kriya, that flow of joy, of bringing back into our center all of the energy that we've been losing and how joyful it is. I was so glad you played this chant, Maitri. We just did a Kriya, higher Kriya initiation, and that's the chant we used for it. You know, the inner kingdom, is that why you chose it? The inner kingdom? Good girl, good girl. Yeah, all the doors do open themselves, all the chakras, all the lights do light themselves. And through the Kriya, the darkness of karma flies away. Yeah, for those of you who are listening who are Italian, there's a few of you. The translation and I mentioned this in the initiation, the translation of darkness like a dark bird flies away. The translation is darkness like a crow flies away. And I said, you know, crows, they tend not to fly away. They just stay there and annoy you. they're highly intelligent, but anyway, they're annoying. But again, the container, we could say the techniques, and then the content, the essence, the inner reality. So how can we live more in the inner kingdom? We know this, we've heard it many times. Yeah, Swami says, live more in the spine. I mean, how often in the day do we think of the Sushumna? Do we think of being straight? Do we think of each movement coming, even for speakers? There's speakers who gesticulate wildly, and then there's Swami, who has the graceful. I mean, just have in mind Swami doing the arati during the Festival of Light. Do you have a picture of that in your mind? We have him on video, and just how, graceful, the hand movement is, how conscious, how coming from the center. Here's what Swami says about how he sees and feels things differently. He says, look at everything from the inside out. View everything and everyone in terms of divine consciousness, which resides at the center of all things. So relating from our center to the center, whether it's the center of a job or a relationship with your daughter or son, or whether it's a relationship with your spiritual practice, or with some outward global event or situation, to relate from the center inside to the center. Now, without having an inner center, we can never figure out what the center is. What is the center of all these things that are happening? What's the center of war and invasion and senseless killing and all of that? What's the center of it? I'm not going to answer that. Everybody has to answer the question for themselves. But the point being that if we don't have a center, we'll never be wise. We'll never see beyond the appearance of things. So Swami says to see everything from inside, from that center, from divine consciousness. He says, when I think of that divine center in all things and in all people, I learn to see them in an impersonal and divine way. And while things are problematic, especially in human relationships, seeing them in a divine way brings great joy. I remember when Swami came back from a trip he took to Florence, and that was the time when he had that super conscious experience of seeing everyone passing on the street as his brother or sister. It was something intellectual that he knew. Of course, he wrote the song Brothers many, many, many years before then, but he had the experience of seeing that. Really recognizing the God in everyone. And he was in joy, absolutely in joy. And I always delighted in the fact that he used a photograph of Florence, of the Ponte Vecchio, for his book called God is in Everyone. Is that the title of the book? I'm not remembering it right now. Somebody help me. God God is for everyone. The book God is for everyone. And that book came out of the experience in Florence at a hotel. And then Swami writes in this article from Religion in the New Age, he says, I see all life now as a dream. Trying to see things with divine vision means to view everything, if only in imagination, as an ever-changing play of light, shadows, and color on the cosmic screen of duality. It's just shadows. It's a cosmic shadow show. So every day we have our daily appointment in the inner kingdom, and we want to get the most out of it. You know, even a half hour, you know, of really deep, you know, sincere meditation going into the inner kingdom sets us up so that during our life, we're not, what's the word I want to say? Yeah, I can only think of it in Italian. We're not, you know, just kind of helplessly thrown into the confusion of the world. There's no sense to it. There's no sense. Life is a shadow show. Look to the beam. Look to the beam. Don't get worried. So we know that Master says that silence and seclusion are the price of knowing God. And even, you know, if that seclusion is an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, but just shutting down everything and not getting involved and just having, you know, the Sabbath to be alone with God. Master said to Swami, make your inner reality home base. This is where we live, home base. And Master said, occasionally take an outing, you know, go out, but come back home. And then just one last thing I'll mention. It helps greatly to feel that inner kingdom when we're together in satsang, even though I'm talking to a bunch of little black squares instead of actual physical human beings. Okay, those of you who have your video on, I really appreciate it. When we're with each other, when we go to places that have holy vibrations, it's coming home. That's what we feel. So it's, you know, Moksha Mandir in California. It's Moksha Kutir at Ananda Assisi, where Swamiji lived and left his body. Those of you, I think you were planning, but then COVID came in the way for a pilgrimage to Europe, to Assisi. Please think about that, you know, again for 2023, just so inspiring. And pilgrimages to India, it's so alive, those vibrations. And that's when we touch home. And then lastly, Master says, try to live throughout the day with your awareness at the spiritual eye. You know, Swami says, live in the spine, and Master says, be aware of the spiritual eye. Talk from the spiritual eye. Listen through the spiritual eye. Eat and taste your food through the spiritual eye. And to remind us just to take the index finger And let's do that now. Take the index finger of your right hand, put it on your spiritual eye. Feel behind it, there's Master and Swami, and they're blessing you. You know what that touch feels like? It's the touch of Kriya. It's the touch of the Festival of Light. Stay there for 15 seconds. And then put your hand down and keep your mind there a moment. And try to visualize a sphere of light. And put yourself inside that sphere of light. And live there. Day by day, breath by breath, moment by moment. So there's time now for questions. If there are any in the chat, I'll take a look. And any of you, I suppose, Maitri, you can coordinate.
Sure. Yeah, we're opening for some Q&A. We'll go on for a little while, and if you want to open your cameras and ask the question directly, feel free to do so, or you can put it in the chat, and we will respond from there. But let's see, who would like to go first? We'll pause.
Did I see Linda?
Linda Scheindienst. She's I don't have everybody up on the screen.
Yeah,
so.
now there you are. Was Linda? Was your hand up? Do you have a question? Are you at the North Pole? We can't hear you because your microphone is not on.
Are they able to unmute themselves?
I was just waiting, but then I realized that my son has this backdrop. I'm using his computer, so I thought I'd go back off again.
Oh no, please leave it on. What do you have behind it? Is that the no. What is that? That's a seal, a white Arctic seal?
I guess so, yeah.
Oh, so nice. So nice. Thank you. No, keep it on. Keep it on. That's great. Okay. So questions? Comments? Kevin, you look like you're fixing to ask something.
Oh, do you want to ask something, Kevin? You got to unmute yourself.
Okay, okay. Well, it was so beautiful listening to your descriptions of how Swami lived in his inner space, really lived from that and demonstrated that on a minute-to-minute, second-to-second basis. And it just reminded me of how valuable community is, because we have people around us that are wanting the best for us in our highest sense. So they're not encouraging us towards towards the world, meaning, towards the reflection, so to speak, as you were describing. And it's just something that I've taken very deeply, and it's satsang and community is so important because of that, because people are there to reflect back to us. Hey, go inside yourself, focus on the inner aspects of your decision-making process. See if it's coming from that center, or if it's or if it's focused outside myself, on something in the world that actually is just pulling me out of my center. So I just wanted to say I appreciate that. That's just a comment of that reminder. So
yes, and it's such an important one. And both Master and Swami gave their lives to encourage us and give us the opportunity to create community. And a meditation group is a community. And we have, by the way, just while I'm remembering, and Kevin, I know you, don't I?
yeah, I lived in Ananda, Assisi.
What, do you have another name?
No, not that I know of.
And what's your last name?
Vaughn.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. Good. Okay. Nice to see you again.
You too. Yeah.
We have a Kriya Bun chat group and a Kriyaban site in English that's just fabulous. And we do a lot of things. Every week we have meditation and we have seminars, all online. And the Kriyabans online, I mean, there's like hundreds of us who have created a really wonderful energy of community. And if you want to be part of that, you just write to me and send me your phone number, and then I'll tell you how to get connected. It's nice to be connected with a real strong Kriyaban community.
I was wondering too, you might mention, we do put this in our newsletter, that there is an ongoing healing prayers for Ukraine and the whole situation.
Yes.
It happens, I think it's 12:30 here now. It's at 1:30 our time in another hour.
Right.
And we do have that in our newsletter each week. And I was wondering if you could comment a little. I was wondering if you could comment for a moment about how you guys are dealing with that there at Assisi and giving support to the area.
Sure, I will. Well, we have devotees and longtime devotees both in Ukraine and in Russia. It's a very hard time for both of them. I'm in touch with our people in Ukraine. I just heard from Vadim in Odessa. I'm concerned about Odessa. Odessa is a port, and it's the main port in Ukraine, but it's the main port for transporting into and out of Russia. And in any case, he said Odessa is still under the jurisdiction of Ukraine, and life goes on. And I asked about the opera theater. They have an opera theater that's built just like the one in Austria. It's absolutely gorgeous. Also in Mariupol, there was a beautiful opera theater. Anyway, they're doing fine. We have a new Kriyaban. He and his wife are actually fighting on the front. We have people who are living in the East. Some of them who have escaped and are living in Moscow now, but their families are still in Ukraine. We have Tamara, who's just meditating and chanting and praying. You're right in the heart of Kiev. And we have Oksana, who is living with us now, and she's doing well. And our refugee fund is supporting her. And another family got out, Olga, with 3 children. And she's living up in northern Italy, and we're helping to support her. She has a job. The kids are going, to school. It's a new life for them. So, but we have to be very delicate about it, because there's hard feelings in Ukraine, also amongst the devotees. They're struggling. They are struggling not to let hatred, come into their hearts. They're struggling because they know that our devotees in Russia are not well informed, and it's not our position to inform them. Anyway, it's a very delicate situation. So we keep in touch. I always ask, do they need financial support? How are they doing? And I ask them every couple days, just to be in touch with us. We have very strong groups in Russia. And just in the last year, we have developed an Eastern European Satsang energy. So Russia, Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria, the Czech Republic, Slovenia, Croatia. So we have, the leaders of those groups, and we'll be going there again, doing satsangs. So it's very challenging, but I mean, it's a wonderful time. It's a wonderful time. I mean, looking at it from the inner kingdom and what's really happening, is that those who have ears to hear and who are ready, that life is a shadow show, and the only show is this show inside. And now that things are very difficult, people are turning inward, and that's the purpose. That's God's purpose in all of this. So thank you for asking about them.
Anybody else have a question, comment? We'll hang out for just a little while longer if you want to. We're off of Facebook too, so nobody has to worry about that. Anybody have a question?
We were on Facebook.
We were a while back before we were. So
Do
here's
you
a
think
question.
that Yogananda's prophetic visions of economic hardship and world wars, wait a second, I have to go, are on the way? Oh, they're here. They're here. They're not on the way. They're here. With the S&P falling. What's S&P? 15% from January through, huh?
The stock market.
Okay, so with the stock market falling 15% through May, S&P, what? Are we headed into a Great Depression? Okay, what's important is that we are not headed into a Great Depression, because of what's happening out there. The stock market, is for sure, all smoke and mirrors and just a shadow show. We can see masters, prophecies are with us of global economic difficulties and of war. He did say that the next war, the whole world would be against Russia. That was one of his predictions. Yeah, the whole world is not against Russia, but enough of the whole world to say that, Master saw very well. It was able to see very well what is happening now. But again, let me say, that's not real. That's not real. What did Divine Mother say to Master when he was having trouble? I am your stocks and bonds. And Swami would say, your only security is being in a community. And he was talking a bit, economically and practically, but spiritually, this is our security. So there's no need to recede from our inner kingdom or to even consider depression. And remember, Master says that at the end of this, there will be centuries of world peace. Centuries, I think he said 200 or 300 years of peace would follow this tumult. So again, the inner reason for this is bringing the world into that state where they look inside,
Hi, I'm Mallory. I wanted to say
Hi,
something.
Mallory.
Hi.
I can see you. Thank you.
Thank you for telling all the experiences about Swami and how it reframes our thinking. And also about community. Somebody in our community who's given a lot of talks, he's been on the path a long, long time. He talks a lot about seeing love in people, just seeing love in people, and how he tries to do that always. And he's not the only one, but I carry that into the week, so my community affects me into the week. And so I just wanted to say that, yeah,
Good,
even
thank you.
online, it's
Absolutely,
powerful.
even online. I mean, a whole world has opened up to us. We have more contact with more people than we ever had. And if Master's prophecy that millions would find God through his teachings, this is one of the ways. It's exponential.
And I wondered if you could put your email in the chat so we could email you about the group that you're talking about.
Coming in right now. I'll make it the simple one.
Thank you.
There is a question too from Sonia. Is there a permaculture project going on in Assisi?
I don't know, which is, I mean, a little bit embarrassing since I was part of the garden, yeah, for the beginning of Ananda. We have a farm, and I know that they've looked into permaculture and they've, you know, spoken with Alex and David Dasi and so forth, but I don't know if they are, you know, to what extent or if at all they are, but we have a very productive farm, yeah, right now. And we've put a lot of human resources and a lot of money resources in these last 2 years in our farm and in self-sufficiency. So again, that was, you know, taking the message and taking masters' directions there and really doing it. So what we've come out of the pandemic with is a much stronger and united community, a great farm, and much more self-sufficiency, and reaching people with the teachings 10 or 100-fold. So, I mean, I don't know if we should be grateful for the pandemic, but of course we should. We have to be grateful for everything and just always pray that we take the message and run with it. That's why we're here. You know, we are masters' hands, Swamiji's hands and feet and heart right now. So what they have come to do will be fulfilled, yeah, through us, and then through us to other generations.
On that note, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the book that you're writing.
Okay, this is the first book I'm writing, and I hope it is just the first. I have another 5 that I would like to get to. This will be the most important one. And I've always been fascinated by and sharing masters' teachings on self-healing. I'm not a healer. I'm not involved in healing except through prayer, of course. But I recognized early on that masters, 2 things. One is that masters' teachings cover every aspect of healing. I would get frustrated with people saying, oh, master doesn't talk about this, so I'm going to a psychologist or an astrologer or another teacher or a life coach or, you know, a healer. Because I knew from my study that master addressed everything. And we teach it here. We have a whole school dedicated to it. It's called, the academy is called the Yogananda Academy of Europe. It has 3 schools, and this school is called Life Therapy for Self-Healing. So that's what I'm writing, is to get all of his teachings in one place, in one book. And there's 12 parts to the book. I'm about 70% of the way through. But then once I'm done, you know, it's going to be going back, and there'll still be months of work. The chapter I'm on right now is about prayer. And I just finished really big and difficult chapters on habits, another one on affirmation. The next one coming up will be on healthy and happy relationships, and then financial health. And, you know, I've done energy and prana and energization and many other things. The book, every time I get into it, I realize how much more there is. It's a matter of choosing, you know, I can't put all of his teachings, you know, they're all over the place. But the book will have appendices to it, which will be appendices online, and a nice amount of masters' unpublished writings will be part of the book, but it will be, you know, people can go online. There'll be exercise, and the book is full of personal stories. So if any of you have a story, either about healing through energization, through prayer, through affirmation, through the grace of God, Yeah, I'm on a chapter now called Divine Intervention. Please send me your story. It could be, one page or just one paragraph. And then I retell it, as a storyteller. There's some fabulous stories in this book. I mean, just really delightful. I mean, everything from, what was his name? I can't remember. Everything from the story of the shortest basketball player in the NBA up to Abdul Kalam, the president of India, who started out so poor he had to sell newspapers just so his family could eat. I have a story of a fabulous young gymnast who lost a leg and is competing at normal level, not in the Paralympics. So there's those kinds of stories, and then also personal stories. So anyway, I don't have any stories from USA. I have stories from all around Europe and from India, from devotees. So if you have a story to tell, please do. And please do. I won't guarantee it'll get in the book. The book's already about 400 pages. So I'm going to have to make choices. And I'm looking forward to finishing it. It's a wonderful thing to do, of course, just to feel, Master and his teachings. The title in English is Life Force, Self-Healing Techniques from the Teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. So it's his, lot of, quotations, citations, and I hope it's going to be really interesting to read. The stories are the spices in it. Every chapter has many, many, many stories. I mean, just from all over the place. I'm thrilled about the stories. So I'll be thrilled to receive yours.
Thank you so much. Well, I think we should start to wrap this up here. If anybody else has a pressing question, would like to ask, please do so now.
I'll go ahead and say something. Hey, how are you, Shivani?
Hi, Eric.
It's good to see your
Eric
face.
Viscamp. Look at you, Eric Viscamp. Well, there's a flash from the past.
I tell you what, I remember my time in Italy so clearly. I remember somebody was speaking about one day about really sitting in meditation till you kind of really had the experience. And I still remember the best experience I ever had was sitting in there after one of the Sunday talks, and I just was going to sit there and meditate until something happened. Like 3.5 hours, I'm suffering. But at the end of that 3.5 hours, something came alive for just a few minutes. That was probably the sweetest meditation I've ever had to date. And there's always something to it. And recently I had having to do with healing. I have a blood clot in my left leg, and they sent me, from this imaging place to the emergency room. And as I was sitting in there, waiting for the doctors to come in, and, they always paint the worst scenario at the imaging place. It could break free a piece of it and go to your heart or your lung. And
Yeah,
kill you
exactly.
But the sweetest thing was as I was sitting there alone, waiting for those doctors, was just thinking of Master, thinking of Spirit. And I had we had the opportunity to have actual experiences. I mean, of just sweet peace, that peace that passes all understanding. And I was ready to go if it was going to be my time. And that was as deep as it really needs to go in some sense, experience-wise.
Yes. And we're so fortunate. And many of the stories in the book are about people in situations really of emergency, where they needed divine intervention, and just how immediate that could be, just from one breath to another, just to feel and
it's not always about being cured. It's about the peace that comes
exactly.
And whether you die or live,
Who dies?
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
And we're lucky, Kriya, because Kriya is done in the astral body. Kriya can be practiced in the astral world. So, we have a gift, not just for this earthly plane. We have a gift that we can take with us as we go forward.
There was one more thing I wanted to say. I always thought that the problem with politicians is politics, because basically we look to vote these people all around the world into positions where they make these choices from our choices. And in a sense, I'm looking forward. I see that the real difference makers in this world have always been those like Christ, Kriyananda, Master. And what I see more and more is that availability of seeing them in all countries. I've seen, since the pandemic, I've visited people from all over the world, which in a sense, I always thought if you knew enough about the people you were killing, you wouldn't kill them. In a sense, we're getting to really know Ukrainians. I wish we could have really explored Russians so we could see the beauty of those people.
They're
not damn them for what they're doing, but lift them.
Well, we're just talking about a few Russians who are, leading this whole thing. But I'm telling you, our Ananda in Russia is amazing. Just amazing, just the dedication and the depth and how many they are and the sacrifices they make and the joy and they have translated so many songs and they sing them. Even the festival of light in Russia is beautiful. I have gone there quite a bit, and strangely, I feel very at home there, extremely at home. And I always tease them, it's because of the borscht. It's one of my favorite dishes, and I eat it every day when I'm there. But they're really great souls. They're such great, deep, inspiring souls. But they're devotees, and it's not, but there is a deep spirituality in Russia. It goes way back. They have their St. Francis. His name is different. It begins with an S. Somebody, Satslavsky, something like that. But I visited his hermitage and tomb, and really, really powerful. And it's really great. And it could be one of the deepest spiritual countries and one of the richest countries in the world if they only understood that their greatest wealth is the people and not the minerals and the oil that lay under the ground.
They did one of those choir pieces, and it was a song by somebody at Assisi, I guess, wrote it, a beautiful song about Master, and they did this.
Oh, yeah.
That was so amazing. We played it. We haven't played it recently. We've played it on
My Guru is here.
Yes. It was so just tears listening to that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and they did the whole collage of it.
Yes, it was really beautiful.
Put it again, on your site so people can see that.
Yeah,
and I'm glad you reminded me of that. In fact, I'm going to make a note and put. So wait a second. So the Russian Guru is here. Yeah, I'm going to put that on our chats again, so people, don't have bad feelings about our Russian devotees.
We do have, if you want to close with this, we do have that Home is a Green Hill. That just made me reminded me that we talked about that. If you'd like, we can close with that.
Yeah, let's do that. And because that's an important message for us, our inner home, home.
So we'll go ahead and share from here. And we'll close with that, and we'll come back to just say goodbye. But we thank you so much, Shivani. It was so wonderful. We feel such a connection to Ananda Assisi, and we're so grateful that you came on and shared with us in this deep way, an inspiring way. And we hope to get there next summer. We have that.
Why don't you do that? 2023, bring a group. Y'all come.
Y'all, that's right. You got it down. Okay. So we'll go ahead and we'll end with this piece, and then we'll just come back and say namaste, y'all, and
Okay.
so.
Your audio is off.
Thank you again. It's a beautiful way to end, and God bless everybody. And we'll end with saying our traditional goodbye from Texas. Namaste, y'all. God bless everybody. Have a great afternoon and evening.